one man's life could be worth. Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. And if a woman, she used her lifeline as something more than some man's serving mother wife time. Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. Oh, well, I wonder. Yes, I wonder what would happen. What would happen to this world? Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. As I look around me, I see strange things. There's muggers and there's jugglers, and we are led by clowns. If an answer ever found us, would we change things? Or are we just a people rotten, ready for the ground? And if our future lies on the final line, are we brave enough to see the signals and the signs? Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. We see the people, we see them marching down. Do we join the parade, or do we try to turn around? Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. Well, I wonder. Yes, I wonder what would happen. What would happen to this world? Well, I wonder what would happen to this world. Disciple children walk the streets selling books and flowers. Can they be the last ones with a semblance of a dream? If they see there's no one out there, if they see we're going nowhere, can we avoid the question, is this all that it means? Now if a man tried to take his time on earth and prove before he died what one man's life could be worth, well, I wonder what would happen to this world. Oh, well, I wonder what would happen to this
Let's join together in prayer. Precious and loving God, we thank you for being with us no matter who we are, no matter what identities that we celebrate, no matter what names that we are called. We thank you. Be with us in this beautiful time out in this beautiful park with the sounds of the birds everywhere, some random dogs here or there meeting each other for the first time. But be with us today, God, in this conversation. In your Son's precious and loving name I pray. Amen. At this point, my new worship community in Temecula, California, has had an opportunity to see about 4 weeks of these videos, and the music alone that I pick is revealing a lot about my personality, but also the topics and the conversations that we've had. I have revealed different aspects of who I am in those conversations. You've learned everything from me about my love of music, the songs that I've picked for these videos. Some of you have learned the nasty truth of my love of professional wrestling. But today I'm going to introduce you to my peaceful place. I mean, listen to the birds. I hope the birds alone are being caught up on this video. As we deal with the conversation today, after you have watched about a month's worth of these videos, the contemplation of who we say that God is. Who do you say that I am? As Christ had in a conversation with the followers. You know, last week, maybe the week before, we talked about the necessity of setting down our nets. And the followers of Christ set down their nets and followed him. But who to them were they following? Who did they feel they were setting down their nets for? I want to focus on that today as we continue in my new environment in Temecula, California. And some of you watch this video on my personal vlog, and you've known me for the better part of 20 some years, having these conversations either in person or on these videos. But we're beginning to piece together, who do you say that I am? It's a very pivotal question that happens when Christ joins together with the followers. They've set down their nets. They set down their nets and followed him. And within that acknowledgement, there was a reason that they followed him. And we get to this conversation and we hear individuals begin to answer this question that Christ is asking them. Who do you say that I am? And they begin to respond initially in this response of, well, some people say you're Elijah, and some people say you are John the Baptist. They began to acknowledge Christ's identity in a direct question by responding with other people's experiences. And Christ isn't asking that question of the followers. Christ, in this conversation that we'll have today, and who do you say that I am? Christ is asking the followers to explain to him, what personal connection do you have with me? Why did you set down your nets? Who do you say that I am? Now, I need to take a moment because some of our friends listen to this in a podcast form and they're not seeing the images of a beautiful park that I'm walking in right now. And in the past, when I've done a video like this, I've literally gotten emails from friends concerned about my health because of the heavy breathing taking place during the video. They only heard the audio of the video. They were not able to see the beautiful trees and grass everywhere. And so for our friends that are only listening to the podcast right now, I am out on a beautiful walk in a beautiful park today as I try to interact with the question, not just who do I say that I am. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing terrific.
Oh, what a great friend there. But through interactions, through communing with others on this walk, I get to experience who I say that I am. It's a very blessed thing. I want us to deal with a question that I get asked many times, and this will be, well, this is actually my third appointment as a United Methodist pastor in Temecula. But it's not just that. I have worked at Lone Oak Baptist Church in Axton, Virginia, Midway Baptist Church in Bristol, Virginia. I've worked at the First United Methodist Church of Bristol, Tennessee, and then into my appointments in the California Pacific Annual Conference in Rancho Bernardo, Oceanside, and now Temecula. And all those places, one of the first questions I get asked is, how do you want us to refer to you? I get that question asked quite frequently. Am I Reverend Davis? Am I Pastor Mike, Pastor Drew? Am I Reverend Drew? What word do I use to explain who I am? And when I hear that question, I actually hear the same narrative that Christ is creating in this conversation with the disciples. The conversation that I'm actually hearing is, what type of relationship do you want to have with me? And that's what I hear the person asking me when I get asked a really simple and cool question. How do you want me to refer to you? I'm not hearing what name do you want me to use, and I'm not hearing what identity do you want me to subscribe to you. The question I really hear when I hear that, what do I call you? Reverend Davis, Reverend Drew, Pastor Davis, Pastor Drew. How do you want me to respond to you? The question I really hear in those moments is, what relationship do you want us to have? So it's the same question. Christ is asking the disciples in this time of conversation, what relationship do you have with me? Their answer immediately becomes the relationship that they had with others. A lot of times that's how this conversation goes too. I get asked the question, is it Reverend Drew, Reverend Mike, Pastor Drew, Pastor Mike, Pastor Davis, Reverend Davis, whatever. I hear all these questions, and then immediately, just like the disciples answered this question to Christ, where they say, well, some call you Elijah, some thinks that you're John the Baptist. And their response immediately comes through from other relationships that they were a part of and other relationships that they have observed. So, good morning. How are y'all doing today? So in these responses, I immediately get this feedback. Well, the previous pastor wanted to be called Reverend Jones or Pastor Bob. And they began to share with me not so much an expectation of the relationship that they want to have with me, but in that response, the previous pastor wanted to be Reverend Jones or Pastor Bob or what have you. I'm going up a big hill right now, so I'm going to get a little bit gassed as I try to finish this conversation. Hi, good morning. How are you? Hi, friend. So they're not telling me, hey, this is what I want to do. What I've actually received from those conversations is a statement. This is a relationship, and the way that I interacted in that relationship, that brings me comfort. So that's what I hear. Oh, Pastor Bob, always. And I hear the desire of that comforting relationship. So quite commonly, when I'm on this new journey with new friends, trying to hear their questions for what they're truly asking, I want you to know, I get it because I've been there multiple times. I know when you ask me a question, how do I want you to refer to me? You are trying to find out what kind of relationship that I want to have with you. When I hear your responses back, well, the previous pastor wanted this, I hear from that, well, this is a relationship that made this friend comfortable. And I want to be on that journey. I want to be on the journey that makes friends comfortable, because what happens after we cut the ice with the how do you want to be referred to, and after we cut through the ice of, well, this is how that I lived with the previous pastor, we get in the moment of living, which is the true moment and the true conversation that Christ is trying to have with these followers. When he asks this question, when Christ asks the question, who do you say I am? The answer that Christ wants to hear back is, why did you set down your net and follow me? What's the importance of that? What is the significance of you deciding to set down your net and follow me? When we get to that conversation, that deep-rooted, deep-hearted conversation of truly dissecting why faith is important to us, truly dissecting why it's important to know as much as possible about the new pastor. And I agree. I think y'all need to know as much as about me as possible, because it creates that relationship. And that's what Christ is really trying to build, is a relationship in that conversation. For y'all listening on podcast again, another deep hill, sorry. He has to have the conversation to know how to develop a relationship. Here's why. I'm going to share with you a little bit about why faith is important to me. For me, faith is a blessed connection to the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It is a blessed connection to that. I believe the Roman words of confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe it in your heart. I believe that. But faith is not limited to that. For me, faith pertains to the responsibility of building relationships. Hi, how are y'all today? Good morning. Building relationships. And within building those relationships, faith has the blessing of an internal assurance that comes through the Gospel of John. But it's not limited to that. We get to experience what the Lord's Prayer shares as earth as it is in heaven. But see you again, another loop. Building on earth as it is in heaven. And it's a living journey that becomes important. Not just the assurance of something that's personal at the end. And for many dear friends, this personal journey and the assurance of salvation is crucially important. And we'll talk about that in a few weeks too. But for me, it's not the main focus. And for me, it's not even 75% of the important message. For me, 75% of the important message is the question that Christ asks when he asks his followers, who do you say that I am? I think 75% of the question exists within the question that I get asked at new churches. How do you want us to refer to you? And it exists even deeper in the immediate response. This is how I connected to the previous pastor. For me, what is important about my faith journey is building relationships. And through building relationships, my vision of understanding expands, because I begin to expand and learn about so many dear friends when I'm willing to sit down and having conversations with them. I have been blessed so many times to sit down with a stranger and to hear their life story. One of my favorite parts of ministry is pastoral visitation. And pastoral visitation, I get to hear about a fellow person's life journey. You know, most of the readings I do are biographies, autobiographies, that I can hear from a person's own words in the autobiographies, their own words explaining their living experience. It's so important to me to hear from an individual their living experience, which intertwines with me in my blessed opportunities to go out and to hear from others who they are in moments of pastoral visitation. When I go out on a visit, quite commonly, I'll take a bulletin, I'll share some events that are coming up, and then I want to hear life stories. You know, I had a blessing in a previous appointment to be in pastoral visitation almost weekly with a dear friend who was 103 years old. And I got to hear about a life that existed before television. And one of the things that we both had a great laugh over, because this individual was a teacher. And you would think, over the history and over the stereotype, that how educators want people to read real books and not funny books, not comic books. I asked this dear friend, who was teaching before Superman, before Batman, how do you feel about comic books? And the response I got back was so different than I would have expected, but I did not hear the answer without asking the question. The answer back was, when those comic books started, and when she started with that phrase, when those comic books started, I was afraid of the answer. But here's how it finished. When those comic books started, the kids were finally reading anything, and that made me happy. And I did not get that answer without sitting down with an individual in their living room and having an opportunity to hear their life journey. So, these questions that we ask, Pastor, how do you want us to refer to you? Or Christ asking the followers, who do you say that I am? They're not challenges. They're not battle statements. They're not digging for an answer that they want to hear. The answer is about how can we build a relationship together. And I'm very excited for that. So, as I conclude this, I need to tell you, I always normally start these conversations with a song in mind, but this week I had the conversation in mind, so I have no idea at this moment what song's going to go on before this. But whatever song it might be, here's what I want you to take from the entire conversation. When somebody asks you a question, take it as an opportunity of learning. When somebody shares a thought with you, take it as them revealing their souls. But do it in the same. Don't shut down a conversation when the response back doesn't link in. Allow the other to be in a holy conversation with you so our spirits can start to intertwine. And the more that we learn about other people, the more peaceful this place will be. And now that I've made that statement, that is why that the song before this video is I Wonder What Would Happen to This World by Harry Chapin. Now the song is from a musical that Harry was a part of called the Cotton Patch Gospel. And the Cotton Patch Gospel is this rural review of the Gospel of Matthew. And it's as if the life of Christ took place in rural Georgia. And this song, I Wonder What Would Happen to This World, connects so deeply to this concept of being willing to step out and interact with other people. And I'll conclude this conversation today with lyrics from the song that you heard at the beginning. These are lyrics that are inscribed on Harry Chapin's tombstone. And I'm going to put it in the gender neutral, the words. But if a person tried to spend their time on earth to prove before a person's died what one person's life could be worth, I wonder what would happen to this world. So hold on to those words, have the conversations. Peace be with you. This has been a presentation of Transcended Media.